are you? Hey everyone, it's Kate. Not Frankenstein's monster, don't worry. So today, I'm gonna be talking about all the Frankenstein movies. And yes, I know that there is a candle on the back. It is not accurate to my character, but please let me live. I was trying to have some fall-themed items. So let's get into it. So to start out, I'm going to talk a little bit about the original book, which was written in published in 1818, written by Mary Shelley. It could be slightly boring, but I love the book and I love Miss Mary Shelley, so I'm going to talk about it. There will be timestamps, so you can obviously skip this and just get right into the movies. The basic sort of idea of Frankenstein came from galvanism, which was a popular medical and also experimental phenomenon that was happening in the 1800s, which was basically trying to reanimate people through electricity. So that's obviously where she gets the idea for Frankenstein's monster coming alive. But so it's basically just the electrical currents moving through someone's body, making you twitch even when you're not alive. But at the time, they thought they could actually possibly reanimate someone because they did it with like frogs or dead prisoners, which is insane. But they would be like, oh, their eye twitched or oh, their leg moved, but it's just the electrical currents moving through them that would cause them to, move. I can't take myself seriously with these shoulder pads. And at the time, it was much more of a popularity thing where they actually thought that people could come back to life. So it was much more scary and like more of like a possibility at the time that this could possibly happen in the near future. For us, it's more of just like scary story, just like Dracula or King Kong or something. I don't know if King Kong's scary, but this was like an actual semi-close to reality idea for the people who were reading this in the early 1800s. So that's just a very basic summary of the ideas behind it. Pretty much Mary Shelley's idea of Victor Frankenstein, who created Frankenstein's monster, pretty much he could be summed up in a quote by Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. Whenever it's like, you scientists were so preoccupied with whether you could or not that you didn't stop to think if you should. Because it's basically about Victor to try to get the achievement and the scientific exploration of if you could create a person out of nothing. If you could reanimate dead people, and not if you should. Because throughout Frankenstein, he abandons the monster almost immediately after he creates it. He's really scared and he leaves. And then he is sort of shunned from the communities because everyone is terrified of the monster. Because another reason why it's so scary looking is because Victor wanted to create something all on his own. So he did not just reanimate one person, he cut up a bunch of people and sewed them all together. That's why he is a stitched together monster. Throughout the novel, it's kind of explaining how, like, if Frankenstein's monster had been shown any compassion or really any positive thing, he would not have killed people or he would have turned out better, because the only one person who is kind to him is a blind person, because the blind person cannot see him, but then he gets chased out of that place as well because the people who are around him see him. So it's basically just being like, he's more of a product of his environment than his personal beliefs, because he's basically like a baby. A really strong big baby. So let's get into the movies. First ever movie of Frankenstein was created in 1910. It was 16 minutes long. I mean, it's pretty fun. It's definitely not the one you think of when you think of the classic. Most people think of 1931 Frankenstein. I'm gonna skip some of the very early ones from the 10s and 20s, and I'm just gonna skip to the 1931 Frankenstein that I think is the most popular and the beginning of one of the biggest characters in media that we know of. The first two are the best, which is Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, which are kind of basically just all of Mary Shelley's novel split into two, obviously with different liberties and stuff because it's a movie. The scientist in Frankenstein 1931 is Henry Frankenstein, not Victor Frankenstein. So I had never seen this movie, funny enough. I had seen young Frankenstein. So very different movies. But I was like, yo, this is literally like Young Frankenstein. Like, I think that copied Young Frankenstein. I loved the set of where Henry lives and also the laboratory where he makes Frankenstein's monster. I'm gonna just call him the monster. So we find out that Henry's wife-to-be is Elizabeth, so it's the same name as in the original novel. She's worried for Henry because he's not like responding to them and he's become a recluse. They like go to where he lives and they're like, you need to let us in, and he's like, nuh-uh, and then they barge in and he lets them in. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna show you something, but you have to promise not to freak out and blah, 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 blah. Whatever, which doesn't really make sense because scientists around the world at this time were very interested in galvanism. They were having these at like public showings. They were like, yo, we can electrocute this guy and his arm will move. Obviously there were quite a lot of scientists at the same time being like, this is just not true, like it's not actually reanimating people, but there were lots of people. It was a huge spectacle at the time. I don't know why he was so freaked out about it and like not wanting them in. Probably because he was just like digging up graves and taking people off to the gallows and cutting them all up and putting them together. Also, I thought it was very funny because anytime Elizabeth is on screen, she is like, the lighting is like absolutely gorgeous. She's like airbrush. She looks gorgeous. And for her, the lighting is so good. And then for the men, it's like not nearly as good. It's so funny. It reminds me of in The Birds at the very beginning, where Tippi Hedren is at the bird shop and her face is like lit to perfection, and then the person on the counter is just like, they like forgot to bring the lighting. I think it's very funny when older movies have like specific actors and stuff that they highlight with, like, they focus so much more on the beauty and stuff over some other characters. And at first, whenever they reanimate the monster, Henry's not like disgusted and grossed out, because in the original he completely runs, he just like runs away after he creates the monster, but in this he's like, okay, I did that. Pretty awesome, I did that. But then they do eventually like lock him up because they're like, this is kind of scary. It's like, dog, you made him. What are you talking about? And obviously he's scared of light, like torches and stuff. But then Henry does end up leaving, just like how Victor did in the original novel. And the monster escapes, meets a little girl, but then the little girl accidentally drowned. And then the monster's like, oh, I gotta run away. But also a little side note, I love how the monster walks. I think it's so funny. And I love how it's like in every movie it's like that. The whole village comes with torches and lights the building that the monster is in. They think he killed him, and also they think they killed Henry because Henry was also in there. And that's kind of where the movie ends. But at the very beginning of the next movie, The Bride of Frankenstein, we find out that he's not indeed dead. After Henry's like nursed back to health because he like fell off the building and like passed out, but he was like fine. He went to visit his old mentor, Dr. Pretorius, who shows Henry several homunculuses, which is, if you don't know, in the Middle Ages, people who practiced alchemy this was something that they tried to do, which was like make like miniature people. Someone gives birth to like a little thing and then they put it in like powder and then it grows into a mini human. Moving on from that, he like shows a bunch of them and it's so funny. And one of them is like a king, I think, and he climbs out of his little container. It was so funny. Like, I actually loved this part so much. I thought it was hilarious. And Dr. Pretorius is wanting to get Henry to make another person. The monster goes and finds a blind man, and the blind man is super kind to him because he doesn't see. They become friends. The Harmon is like teaching him out like different words, but then people come see the monster and they chase him down. He hides for a while. The doctor finds the monster and talks to him and everything like that. Then they kidnap Elizabeth, Henry's wife. Henry obviously is like, okay, I'll make you a bride if that will make you give me my wife back. And once the bride is made, they obviously electrocute her. She is scared of the monster. The monster is like, friend? And she does not like him. And he's like, everyone hates me. And the monster is about to blow up the building because he's so upset. And also he's like, I don't deserve to live. So he tells Elizabeth and Henry, like, go, you live, we stay. And the doctor also is forced to say the monster kills all three of them. Henry and Elizabeth leave. And that is the end of the movie. So now on to the Son of Frankenstein. This takes place a while after. This is when Henry and Elizabeth's son is completely grown up and has a family of his own. They move into the Frankenstein residence and estate. The son of Henry revives Frankenstein's monster because Igor is kind of pushing him. We find out that Igor is using the monster to do his own bidding. So then he kills Igor because Igor tries to kill him. So he's like, nuh-uh, girl. And the monster finds Igor and is like, my master is dead. So he goes and kidnaps the son. But he can't kill him because he is not a monster per se. Wolf saves his son and kills the monster. Then right after Son of Frankenstein, we have The Ghost of Frankenstein, which was in 1942. I really disliked this one. The whole thing is about Igor and Frankenstein trying to get another son of Henry's to fix his brain because he was injured. And then the one right after that is Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Not much happens. I didn't really like it. I also didn't watch Wolfman. And then right after this movie is The House of Frankenstein, which is about Dracula, Wolfman, and Frankenstein. So I'm gonna skip this one because it's just like the first 3 out of 6 are the only ones that are like Frankenstein. The other ones are just kind of like other characters being like, well, what if Frankenstein fought the Wolfman? We're done with this series of movies. So then in 1948, this is just a one-off Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, which this is probably one of my favorite Frankenstein movies. It was so good. I loved it so much. If you're gonna watch any movie, I would say either watch the 1931 or this one, because it was very funny. This one has Frankenstein, Wolfman, and Count Dracula. But I actually did enjoy how they did this one because similar to the House of Frankenstein, where it's like a traveling thing, they go to like almost like a museum with all these monsters. Dracula takes control of the monster, and the monster is doing his like evil bidding, sort of. And throughout the entire thing, Costello obviously is the one who sees all this stuff, and Abbott does not believe him at all, which I usually dislike whenever this happens in movies, because it's like, just use your brain, use your eyes, this guy's telling you. And I felt that a little bit in this one, but I honestly didn't mind because it was quite funny. But I think my favorite bit of the movie is pretty early on, whenever Wolfman calls Costello because he's trying to tell them that he's like needs help, but in the middle of it he transforms and like just barks, and then Costello's like, dude, I can't hear you, can you get your dog off the phone? Like, why'd you call me if it's just your dog barking?
Hey, you'll have to get your dog away from the phone. I can't hear a word you're saying. You're awful silly to call me all the way from London just to have your dog talk to me.
This one's more not really necessarily about Frankenstein as much. I feel like it's mainly about Dracula. But I still really enjoyed it. I did really like this one. There's not really much to say about it other than it was a fun movie. So, The Curse of Frankenstein was made in 1957, and Christopher Lee is the monster. So this one is about Victor Frankenstein. He's a young boy who is being tutored, and they are doing stuff where they like can revive stuff. The tutor is showing him like different science stuff. They revive a little puppy, and it's very cute. But then they start trying to make a human being, where they take a bunch of body parts and sew it together. They try to take a brain, but the brain is damaged, so it makes the creature very violent. He revives the creature, and then they kill it, and then he revives it again, and then it kills a bunch of people. This one is probably the worst portrayal of the monster out of most of these movies, because he is so violent in a way that I don't think any of the other ones are, because he kills the blind man, he kills multiple other people. There are reasons because he is the monster, but I felt like in the original it was like he was more of like an empty slate, and he was shown coldness, so he became angry. But in this, it's just like, meh, I'll just kill people. So this is my least favorite portrayal of Frankenstein's monster, I'd say, out of all the movies, and there are lots of these. And also, the maid, Justine, Victor forces the monster to kill her because they were having an affair. She wants him to marry her, and he's like, nah, girl, so he kills her. And then he's like, Elizabeth, I love you. XOXO, I definitely didn't kill my mistress because I don't want her to tell you. Ha 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 ha. Then in the Revenge of Frankenstein, Victor is awaiting trial because he's being accused of killing Justine. He escapes the guillotine because he makes someone else die instead of him. So then the second one is about Victor still making the creatures. He gets his assistant, the hunchback, Carl, to give his brain to him, and then he'll put him in a healthy body. He does that. And then Victor is found out to be Victor Frankenstein because he like changed his name. Victor dies, but then his brain is being put into a new body. Carl is also dead. Everyone's freaking dying, so then he leaves the country again and starts a new practice with a different name. So he's just like hopping around with like malpractice. So I'm gonna skip the next three in this series. It is The Evil of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Created Woman, and Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. Personally, these kind of suck. This whole series, not my favorite. Interesting new spin on Frankenstein, I think, but I just personally did not enjoy these movies. I kind of skipped through the last three because I was getting very burnt out with this Frankenstein. They were kind of stupid. At one point they were trying to put a dead person's soul into another person, and I was like, dude, what? This was about a brain. Let's chill out. We have Young Frankenstein, which I think most people have seen because it is like a very famous comedy parody film. I think it's like in like the top 100 funniest films or whatever. This was directed and written by Mel Brooks. So I'm assuming everyone knows this is pretty much just like an entire parody of the story itself. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think it was very funny and very well done. Because it was obviously shot to look like a classic, one of like the classic 31 film, and they even used some of the props from the 1931 film in this one. I did really enjoy it. The only part that I did not like was that there is like low-key rape scene in it that's like meant to be put off as like a comedic bit, and I personally don't find it funny. That was like the only bit that I was like, oh, not very funny, because it was literally meant to be like a super funny joke, and afterwards she's like, that was pretty awesome. And it's like, this is like the most traumatizing experience for people who have been through this, and I don't know if it should be played off as a bit. I personally just don't like any jokes about sexual assault and stuff. I think most people don't. I don't think there's much to say about it. I think most people have seen it. So I know there are a lot more Frankenstein movies, but those are the ones I'm talked about today. I didn't want to talk for like 5 hours. Well, I would like to, but I don't think anyone would watch it, is basically what I'm saying. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. This was a bit of a different video, so let me know if you liked it. Like and comment and subscribe, because did you know that if you don't do that, that the monster will come and like literally kill you and burn your house down? Me, by the way. I'm the monster. Okay, that's gonna be it. Bye!